Regal Storage Systems. Please contact us for intelligent storage solutions for archive, museums, warehouse, and shopping malls. Contact us at PO Box 51098, Abu Dhabi, UAE. Telephone number 971 2672 8062. Also visit our website www.regalstoragesystems.com.
Talk show live from Dubai. From today, we are starting a new series, Amazing People. News Karnataka, being the Karnataka state media, making an effort to showcase the amazing Kannadigas in their expertise and talent worldwide, and through them motivate young Kannadigas. Today, we will talk about life in Muscat, and we have three amazing people from Karnataka, and I love to introduce them one by one. Dr. Anchan CK is the founder and managing director of Worldwide Business House LLC, an international business advisory firm which is headquartered in Muscat, Oman. He brings with him over 25 years of vast experience working with various MNC and professional companies. He has been the CEO of one of the largest conglomerates in the Middle East advisory firm. He is an elected board member to the Board of Indian Schools in Oman, which currently has 19 schools across all the regions of Oman with over 45,000 students. He holds a position of chairman academics. He is an invitee to the management colleges across the globe and is the recipient of International Coach Award. He is a writer and columnist. More than 200 plus articles of his has been published by international publication. Dr. Anchan is born in Hejmadi in undivided Dakshina Kannada district, now Udupi district, and brought up in Mumbai. Welcome to the show, Dr. Anchan. Our another guest is Lawrence Alva, a chartered manager from UK, is currently the CEO of National Training Institute, NTI, in Oman, with over 35 years of experience in managing and leading training and development business. His entire career span has been built in and around human development organization, right from vocational training to management training. He is member of the Chartered Management Institute, UK, member of the Indian Society for Training and Development, certified alumni of the Leadership Academy of the New Horizons University, USA, associate member of IOSH UK, and MBA in Educational Management from University of Leicester, UK. He hails from Mudbille in Udupi district and is currently a resident in Oman.
Mr. Clarence Pinto. Mr. Clarence Pinto is from Kaikamba, Mangalore. Married to Jane Ida, currently lives in Oman with children Alistair and Amanda. His social involvement includes General Secretary, Vice President MCC, and continuing as core committee member. Also, gave his service as member of Pastoral Council of Saints Peter and Paul Church, Ruvi, representing Mangalorean community. Vice President, PR, and mentor of Toastmaster Club Ruvi, and convener of Mangalorean Konkani Wing Indian Social Club Oman. Gave his service as a honorary editor for Jello, Kanik, and Expressions newsletter of TMI Club Oman. Konkani literary works include 5 novels, 300 short stories, 50 poems, and 30 various articles, and also published his own book, Sutka and Katha Amrit, and contributed for the publications of several other books. Won several awards, and prominent among them are Goa Sahitya Academy Award in 1986, Konkani Sahitya Academy Award for short story book Katamrit 2019, and Daiji Dubai Puraskar in 2019. Presently, working as a general manager of Prestige Projects and Engineering Supplies Company LLC in Oman. Welcome on board, Mr. Clarence Pinto.
Welcome to the show, Dr. C.K. Anchan, Mr. Lawrence Alva, and Clarence Pinto. Please share your opening thoughts. Dr. Anchan?
It's a great honor to be down here, sir. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you, Mr. Valerian. Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. It's indeed a great pleasure to be down here. I think on behalf of my co-panelists, Mr. Clarence and also Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Lawrence Alva, your opening thoughts?
Yeah, it's a privilege to be participating in this event with the News Karnataka TV. And I hope we will contribute something that will help the society to go forward in life. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Clarence Pinto, your opening thoughts?
Namaskara, good evening, namaste, Deobari Sons. This is really a wonderful platform for us to share our views with all the viewers of News Karnataka. Definitely, whatever we have within us, we'll share with the people, which will benefit them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. C.K. Anchan, Mr. Lawrence Alva, and Mr. Clarence Pinto. Viewers, we have three amazing Kannadigas in Oman, and they will share their experience and expertise in the field they are in to all our viewers. Let's start the show live from Dubai. My first question comes to you, Dr. Anchan. You are the founder and MD of Worldwide Business House LLC. Tell us more about your company, like when it was established, where is it located, what are the activities of the business?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ellarigu namaskara.
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 I had a fantastic career working with the best of the MNCs across my life. God has been very kind. But after working for various multinational companies, I thought that once you start working, what you get is only a blood pressure and a cholesterol, nothing beyond that. I think time has come that whereas as youngsters, we should look beyond and take on to life. I thought that my best experience, which I have gained over the years, should be put into practice. That is when we started this humble company called as Worldwide Business House. Started it almost around 10 years ago. Today, we are one of the best international advisory firms spread across. We work closely around 20 different countries. I'm proud to, I can say it on record that when in the Middle East, we work with the top clients, any segments. You take on any segment, right from hotels to hospitals to ports, any segments, we work very closely. So what do? We as a company work very closely with the government. We work very closely with the semi-government and also with the corporate companies. We look at joint ventures, we look at investments, we look at acquisitions. We understand what a company really requires in a particular sector. So we try to bring in collaborative partners in terms, it could be in terms of technological partners, in terms of trading partners, or understanding a collaborative market. That means a company which could be in a particular area, let's say from Oman, and it wants to extend its business opportunities across the globe. That's where we hold hands. Across from last 10 years, we work and represent closely with the various chambers and federations, like Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce, Confederation of Indian Industries, WTC, World Trade Centers, various chambers across the globe. Now, this is one of the key area is basically to bring in more entrepreneurs, connect to more entrepreneurs across the globe. We work closely between Oman and India. Being an Indian and that too from Karnataka, we have a special heart towards Karnataka. So we have been actually developing and connecting to all those different business houses and entrepreneurs down from that side, giving them an opportunity to understand a business. And if anyone is seriously interested to connect to any of the market, not only Oman, but also Middle East market or any other country, we have a strong network. So that's where we come in terms of business incorporations, understanding the business and taking them to hand-holding them to the next level.
Okay.
That's a good insight.
Okay.
That is
great.
Yeah.
Great. I think our viewers all across the globe who are doing multifarious activities in business, profession, or any other skills, maybe have to contact Dr. Anchan and see what are the opportunities in Oman, as well as what Oman can invest in other countries, right, Dr. Anchan?
Yes, very much
Yes.
on.
Okay. Okay.
That's a
All
good
right.
thing. Yeah. Okay. This question is for Mr. Lawrence. Currently, you are the CEO of the National Training Institute, that is NTI in Oman. Could you please tell us more about NTI? Like, what are the activities? And if you can tell us when it was established, that would be great.
Yeah, NTI, which stands for National Training Institute, was established way back in 1985. It was started and run by a publicly listed company in Oman, and subsequently sold to a multinational company, UK-based company in 2014. So today we are part of a very large multinational group based in the UK. Basically, what do? We enable careers. We help individuals, graduates, either school leavers or college graduates, get into jobs. We train them for jobs, train people to work. That's what we do. So 90% of our work is actually involved in developing the local workforce. What we call here in Oman is Omanization. Right? So we are actually working against the inflow of expatriates, but it's something good that should happen in a country where we should develop local people to take on their jobs. So we have a very wide portfolio of offerings, right from business skills and IT, management studies on one side, to technical training, which includes development of technicians for construction, oil and gas, manufacturing, as well as we do a lot of work in HSE, that is health, safety and environment, predominantly driven by the oil and gas industry, because safety at work is something very, very important. So we make sure that people who are going into the field are safety conscious and safety competent. Right.
So basically, it's the skills you all are giving.
Exactly, that's right. So skills for freshers, what we call training for employment. So we train people to get into employment. Then we have something called training for development. So people who are already employed, we help them upskill and learn advanced skills as well. So we do both these.
Okay. That is very something good to hear, because the skill sets are firstly set in the people so that they can be employed, and those who are employed, their skills can be
further developed.
Further developed. Yes.
Is it like the company approaches you and gives you a contract for training, or is it an individual like me can come and join your institution and get skills?
Very good question. Yes, it's both, but 95% of our business comes from corporates. It's a B2B business. Okay. So only 5% is from the individuals, because individuals who are looking for professional certifications, like you want to become a NEBOSH certified safety officer, or you want to become Microsoft certified systems engineer, or Oracle certified database administrator. So professional certifications, normally we have individuals coming in, but for getting people ready for employment and then developing them on the job is mostly corporate. So 95% of our business is B2B.
So it's almost, is it like our ITIs in India?
Kind of, but it's a mixture of ITIs, and further up.
Further up. Okay, yes. Okay. Great to know that. Maybe later on I will ask you a different question on that at the end of the show. Now, my question to Clarence is this: you have a lot of social involvement. What kind of community work that you have done in the past, and especially during this pandemic, through the associations that you are involved, like MCC, TMI, Indian Club, and others?
Once again, namaskara.
Namaskara.
Lawrence and Dr. Anchan, they have given brief about their professional life. My involvement in the social, I do work here in Oman,
Yeah.
but also I was involved largely in many organizations from 1999. I have served for Mangalorean Catholic Center of the parish. It is basically under Saint Peter and Paul Church, and especially for Catholic people of the church. So there, what we used to do, we used to develop the talents of our people, their children, and give a platform for them to grow. I was also involved in Toastmasters. It is back in 2003 and those years. Recently, I have taken in charge of Mangalorean Konkani Wing, which is under Indian Social Club, also Indian Embassy. There we play a very special role to bring up this Mangalorean Konkani speaking people under one umbrella. Under one umbrella, we understand their problems, we give the platform for them to grow, exhibit their talents, and we come together. It is not only for people from Muscat, it is also people from beyond Muscat. We also cover Barca and beyond also. So this is the organization where official under Indian Embassy and under Indian Social Club. We also should remember our Dr. Satish Nambiar, who is normally guiding us and leading us in various ways. And this is one of the language wings of coastal Karnataka. That's what I should say.
Yeah. But during this pandemic, how was your involvement?
We had a very, very special role to play during this very difficult time.
Yes.
We had a lot of desperate people calling us. There are two types of people. One, they lost a job and they wanted their daily bread, we call, and they did not have money and they wanted a support from us. We provided a really good support for the people who did not have the money. Also, the people who wanted to go back to India, and our Indian government through Indian Embassy made a very, very nice program, Vande Bharat Mission. Right. And through Vande Bharat Mission, we had also arranged the travel of coastal Karnataka people. In fact, it is through Bangalore to Mangalore, but there are so many people went back. So in two ways we supported during this pandemic. One, providing the food ration for the people who are desperate, who lost a job, and also the people who wanted to go back to India. Yes, we provided, supported their travel.
Okay, very, very nice to hear that your activities and helping the people during this pandemic.
Dr. Anchan, what was the impact of this economy in Oman due to this COVID situation on various sectors, and how do you foresee the revival?
Very good question. I'll try to cover up in the time what I have. Oman's economy impact is nothing very different from the other GCC country, but we had two other various different challenges. One was actually to do with the crude oil, which of course you understand, it also hit very, very badly. Okay, so that was one of the key reasons. And also we had a change of a government. God bless our earlier His Majesty. So we had a new ruler coming on, and so there has been a change in the new cabinet ministries right now. So Oman, from last few months, so it has gone through a very, very different kind of a challenge in terms of various sectors. There have been predominantly certain sectors which are universal. Those are like aviation industry, where we lost almost close to 2 million passengers in such a short time, which is very big for our industry, for a country like Oman. Similarly, we're talking about hospitality industry. It really went on to worse because virtually they were closed. Manufacturing sector is another sector which really got hit. Now, please try to understand Oman as a particular country, we import most of our products and services. So now import was restricted. It did affect into manufacturing sector and also to the other core sectors into retail. But however, I should congratulate the government of Oman. What an excellent effort they did. They ensured to connect to the countries directly. Earlier, what we used to do is we used to import most of our products from the neighboring countries by road. So the government thought that is the right time to connect to the countries directly and import the products directly via the port. So a very interesting fact actually happened. Government took control of the understanding. The food inflation and other products were kept in control. We did not have a high inflation like any other countries. Kudos to the government. Health was actually taken into control. Various measures were taken. Strict adherence was actually made in. But reviving, getting back to the economy, what actually happened is we connected to 40 countries into the world where we could directly import, and there were almost around 200 trips, okay, which were worked within the COVID period. And I'm talking about the clearance was exactly done within 24 hours. And that is what the government brought in the change to ensure products and services can be reached to the people and consumers. And it went an extra effort. And so it brought a positivity. I would say that, I mean, when they say that whenever you come across with a challenge, and that's what the problem is. So here we had a problem. And because of the problem, we had a different thing to connect.
Okay.
That's very nice.
Yeah, that's very nice. In a short term, you have covered a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. And let's move on. I'm coming to Mr. Lawrence. Oman, I have data which has 4.6 million people, is also housed to over 55 universities, colleges, and training institutes. What are they specialized in? And have they switched to e-learning during this pandemic? And will e-learning flourish in the future? There are three questions, Mr. Lawrence.
Okay. Yeah, first, let me start by saying that Oman is far ahead of any other Gulf countries in terms of developing their people.
Right.
Omanis have a very good work culture. Their cultural background makes them, very receptive, very hospitable. They're kind-natured people. Therefore, Oman has made significant progress in developing their people and getting them into employment. You don't see that in many other GCC countries.
Yeah.
That's why you see these 55 institutions educating and developing Omanis. They cater to a wide range of subjects, right from business to technology institutions, engineering. We also have 5 applied sciences colleges. So they cover a wide range of subjects. E-learning, what happened during COVID? Yeah, see, the notion of e-learning, or I would call it a blended learning, where you have e-learning and face-to-face learning, and that has been under discussion for a number of years now. So, gradually people have been moving towards that, whereas West has made more progress, whereas we are still lagging behind. But thanks to COVID, it is now accelerated because we had no other option.
Opportunity.
Exactly. And it's an opportunity. Yeah. And there was no option.
Right.
So yes, many colleges have moved on to e-learning. I would say a few into e-learning, but more on online learning. There's a bit of a difference between the two. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. So the number of schools and a number of colleges have shifted to online learning, right, where we have lecturers, trainers, teachers actually doing live training using medias like Zoom, Google Meet, and there are many others. But some institutions have progressed beyond. They have really got into e-learning by using platforms that employ AI, the artificial intelligence, to adapt the learning to meet individual learners' requirement. So I would say going forward, quite a bit percentage of e-learning will remain, because that seems to be cheaper, that seems to be more effective. However, education needs social environment. So if you learn some knowledge on your own, you're not educated. You're informed, but you're not educated. So there's a big difference between knowledge and being educated. So in order to be educated, we need to be with people, because society makes a big difference to how we develop. Therefore, face-to-face learning with each other. So coming into a common classroom, common campus will be there, and it has to be there. But probably the ratio of offline learning, on-campus learning will decrease, and probably the e-learning bit will increase.
I was about to ask you that ratio. What about an idea? I'm just throwing an idea. What about the idea of 1/3, classroom learning, 1/3 on field training, and 1/3 on e-learning? How is that idea?
Great concept. I mean, that would be fantastic. You have brought in another element there, which is field training.
Exactly.
Which has been missing in many organizations.
Yeah.
So if you have a one third of online or self-learning, and 1/3 of field learning and 1/3 of campus learning, it would bring in a very good mix, and that's what I would call a blended learning.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we need to move in the future.
I think
this is where experience counts. Experienced people come in and talk. That is the way we get it to do.
Yes. This is. I think you can think of this, Mr. Lawrence. You are the head of the NTI, and I think you can take this forward. It's just a thought which came to us, and
that was the instant thought. I think so, Valerian.
Yes. Because when you said ratios, I said, why not have 1/3? That's how it came to me. So let's move on.
Yeah. So this is for Mr. Clarence. Mr. Clarence, were there any challenges in Oman to contain corona cases, like social distancing due to cramped accommodations and all?
Thank you, Rajesh. It's a fantastic question. I also support what Lawrence said. Oman is a beautiful country, very nice country to live. Plus, it has a safe environment. What happened? Corona is a worldwide problem. Corona, all the countries, all over the world, there is a problem. But especially in Oman, the Oman government made efforts to educate the people to learn how to avoid the infection. That is more important. So let us divide in various sectors. Now, family, offices, and as you said, it is our workplaces.
Yeah.
Families, everywhere, they educated people to see that social distancing and what are the requirements of corona spread. Now, in the accommodations, I'm sure the government through municipalities made sure that each and every one is checked. Even when you're entering, this must be there all over the world. When they're entering, they check the temperature. If somebody has a temperature, they keep them quarantined and make sure they are treated. So that is one of the way they have done. Social distancing, again, this will be there all over the world, even India. Even for us, wherever we go to any shopping malls, social distancing is important, and we have kept it. Now, cramped accommodations, this is again the problem all over the Gulf. We also have the same thing. But in those accommodations also, the government through municipality made sure that each and everyone has tested, checked, and if at all somebody has the symptoms of this corona, they have been kept quarantined and taken necessary precautions. This is what they have done. And
complete precautions were taken. That's a good
thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that is the reason, there was increase of the cases, but government has made real efforts to contain that. That is really, we should appreciate our government.
Okay, great. Nice to hear that, Oman government has done, all the precautionary measures to contain COVID in all the three, sectors that you have mentioned, whether it is corporate, family, or, clustered accommodations. Yes. Okay.
I think so. Everywhere, wherever we have spoken, I think so. Government have taken really good measures.
Exactly.
Yeah. What happens is I know my government. I know my environment where I live.
Yeah.
Even though I moved around, and I should say, it is really, we should appreciate what government of Oman has done for the people.
Yeah.
It is, they are not differentiated between locals, Omanis, or expats. They're
Exactly.
given
Exactly.
Same.
equal treatment for all. Even all
Even Dubai, Abu Dhabi also, we have the same, it's a very, the way how they've managed it is really excellent.
Yes. Yes. In fact, we spoke to people from Kuwait, and we had shows with Bahrain, and now with you, Oman. And next week we are going to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. All people that we spoke, they gave so much, positive measures that has been taken by each government.
it
Good
is
to hear
called
that.
Matravumi Preeti.
Yes,
Wherever
yes,
we
yes.
live, this is the country where we live. It is a
Exactly.
fantastic country. Fantastic.
Exactly. We have spent more than almost 50% plus our life in, almost
Absolutely.
maybe more than that. Yes, yeah, surely.
Absolutely.
Dr. Anchan, there is a long question coming to you now.
Please, sir, please.
Is Oman the preferred destination for investments and business? And what are the core sectors Oman has focused on? And what are the areas of interest for investors? This is the first thing. Also, how the world economy supports the local economy and the MSME sector, including the ICV, that is in-country value, which is there in UAE also.
Thank you. Very wonderful question. I think this is a question which will take, I'll go by phases.
Yes,
First, I'll say why Oman? As Lawrence currently put it, and also Mr. Clarence currently said it. When you're talking about a country, is always known by its people, okay? And here it's the people who make the difference. So when we're talking about, we have the best of the local talent, and this local talent is ready to take on to the 21st century. Today, when you look at Oman, I mean, right from the airport, you find a gentleman receiving you as a cab driver, and you go to a multinational company, either a bank or an insurance or an oil company, you will find them as a CEO, which you don't find in any of the GCC countries. As very well said, the government has put an effort to ensure the localites are extremely well educated. They're extremely well informed, at the same time, very, very humble. So we have a great workforce, and they connect and they're ready to understand and mix with the culture. This is point number one, which is very, very different and is the greatest asset for any country. Point number two, when we're talking about the safety, today Oman is ranked as the 5th safest country in the world, as Clarence sir said. Yes, today Oman makes a difference, the way the government takes care of its people, not only the locals, but also the expatriates. The way it addresses, the way it holds itself is extremely unique. And we also, I mean, we have been staying in this country. We feel at home and we work towards the best of the country in every smallest aspects. Let's understand what are the other areas and what's from the commercial angle. Now, Oman is the first country among the Gulf countries to work on the cross-border trade index. We are ranking number 1. That means any product which comes in, we are able to clear it faster. And a product which is made in Oman can be re-exported to any of the countries. We are extremely peaceful in terms of business trade alliances. That means the product made in Oman can be given to any country without any hassles. Let's understand the other understanding of the workforce. Today, when you look at the workforce, we have a lot of foreign nationals from across the countries who feel home and who actually have come forward and have contributed in developing the country and investing into the countries into various sectors. That could be right from retail to hospitals to hotels, you name the industries. The expatriates have come forward and they have joined hands, which is a very, very rare phenomenon in other Gulf countries. Now, the government, if you look at the location, Oman is a country which is actually unearthed, is still a virgin market, okay? And it's a country where a lot of business potential is there for every sector. The government has gone ahead and understood the value, and it has worked on bringing the best of the ports, the air connectivity, the different connectivity, the roads and transport, the logistic industry is currently ready to gear up. The government has spent almost close to $25 billion, okay? And today Oman is geared up on that. And we are next to none. If you're looking at our ports and the airports and the road connectivity, we are the best. We also connect to all the countries. It could be right from the Asian countries, the GCC, the African. So if you, the location and the understanding of the country is very different. So anything wherein you come in as an Oman, it's not only for Oman's market, but it's across. That is what extremely interesting to understand. We bought in last year, Oman got almost close to $28 billion as an investment to country. And we are expecting after COVID, Oman will be the country which will take on in the GCC and Africa and the Middle East country. This is like how India is pursued. Similarly, I feel strongly, as an economist, I feel there are various reasons beyond it. Because of the network, because of the relationship, I feel Oman will be the preferred countries as compared to most of the other countries. Why? We have free trade agreements with US, we have free trade agreement with Singapore and many other countries. We have GAFTA agreements. We have various trade agreements in place, and we respect each other bilateral trade. We work very closely with various governments in promoting bilateral trade, and I can say with the authority, yes, Oman is geared up for that. Let's look at the statistics now when we really look at it. Today, GCC population will be almost close to 50 million by this year end. And that's where Oman stands the crux. Okay. Today, when you look at the import, it's almost around $50 billion of import per month, which happens in terms of fruits and services, okay, particularly food. So again, that's where Oman stands the crux, where these products could be imported and product could be redistributed across. Now, what are the areas, as you rightly ask, what is that actually is happening? The government understands that that we as a country cannot be basing ourselves only into oil, and that is where they have got into something called the non-oil. That's the areas are right from manufacturing. Now, manufacturing is a key area where the government of Oman has taken interest. We have leased lands which actually is being given to any investors who can come. We have the best facilities in terms of support, in terms of the investment facets. The new government is totally bringing in a change in terms of the investment values, and the cooperation, the bylaws is underway. So we are extending into any area. Now, last year, we exported almost to 140 countries, okay? And that is, again, a mark, a hall of fame for manufacturing countries. With the products from Oman are being exported 140 countries. We do not have income tax, one of the which is a very personal thing. If you look at any other countries, the taxation is flat down here, which works only around 15%. That too when you make a profit. Any products or any company which want to set up into manufacturing products which are imported, we don't tax them. They are exempted from tax for 5 years. Okay. Oman exported almost close to 8.2 billion last year. That was a turnover only from the manufacturing sector. The employment went on in the manufacturing sector almost around 400,000. Now that's a good number, where again the employment will increase as far as employment in the manufacturing sector is there. The other sector which actually where Oman is rich, which is known, which is not very earth, is mining sector. Oman is full of rich of minerals into various things, okay? And beautiful companies across the world, they understand what Oman has to offer. So now we have a change of mining rules in terms of the in-country value, which is coming up. So you could be readily prepared for it. Mining will play a very, very key role when it comes to within the Gulf, not only Gulf, but other area, because we have the natural resources which other country doesn't have. Please understand, when it comes to fishing and agriculture, we have the largest coast. Last year, we were the largest exporter of fish when it came to fish, actually. That means Oman has beautiful sea coast, and we take care of our sea. Hence, if you see the largest export of the fisheries and inherent product services was done. Government is currently working on developing the fisheries and also the agriculture. Now, Oman also has the largest reservoirs. If you look at the Al Falah system, if you go to the history, the way to reserve the water has started from Oman. So they very well understand if rain comes in, how a water has to be reserved. So today, Oman, if I tell you today, Oman has self-sufficient. We grow bananas. We grow most of the vegetables. So the government today is getting on saying that we should get into actual farming. And that's another area where we should be looking at. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And just briefly, what is this ICV? I know.
ICV is in-country value.
Yes.
Where
yes.
the government has taken today, where they are looking at in-country value, also clubbed with privatization.
Right.
Today,
right.
government is asking companies to come forward. It could be the area of health sector, in terms
Right.
of education, in terms of manufacturing, or any other sector where there is a technological expert. It's not necessarily related to the financial angle.
Yeah.
Government of Oman is very cleanly understanding the importance of what technology can bring in, and also differentiation of the companies which can come to Oman and participate in the developing the economy of Oman, sir.
Right, right.
I believe he has done a lots of homework in this, really.
I'm sure.
You need to give me 1 hour. I can tell you what actually.
I know. We
but
can
I
actually
don't have
see
Dr.
from you
Ranjan.
that believe the knowledge what you have.
Yes, yes. You
No,
have.
every segment is very specific.
Yeah, yeah. You are. That is your cup of tea, and you can have it many more cups. I know, Dr. Ranjan. But we have limited time. Thank you for sharing those, insights about the investments in Oman. How conducive the atmosphere is for, Yes.
Only one thing I'd like to conclude.
Yeah.
Oman, any investor who's looking to invest in Oman, I can tell you on a personal note, his investment will be safe.
Yeah.
He will be having the best investment. He will have the best of the returns. And believe me, he will have best of his life, which other country cannot give him.
Yeah.
So come to Oman.
Yes.
I mean, one of the best countries to be tapped. And if you need anything further, you can Google me.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
we are having competition between all the countries now. Everybody's telling to come to that place. So we really don't know where to go now.
That's how it should be, because wherever we have lived, as Clarence said, that's a Matrabhumi. That there are two things: the land we born and the land we work. So naturally,
land we born, land we earn.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take a break. A small one. Viewers, don't go away. Amazing 3 people are with us from Oman, and they are sharing their experiences and life in Oman. Let's take a break.
Merit Freight Systems Company LLC Dubai is one of the leading freight forwarders in Dubai, handling air and sea consignments to and from the Middle East, Europe, USA, Far East AGCC, or any other worldwide destination. Merit Freight Systems offers the services of freight forwarding, sea freight, air freight, consolidation, project cargoes, expertise in handling HAZ IMO cargoes, warehousing, packaging, and weekly LCL FCL container services to Mangalore, Bangalore, and Goa. For all your freight forwarding requirements, contact Merit Freight Systems Company LLC, Post Box 35101, Dubai, UAE.
Back to live again, and over to Rajesh.
This is to Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence, were there any government and institution measures in response to COVID-19, like payment deferrals, rate reduction, any things on debt payments, custom related, and any other measures? Also, what economic stimulus packages from Oman government to support the private sectors?
Yes, Oman government has done a lot of things for helping the private sector, but focus has been on employment, protecting employment. So what they did was, you cannot fire a local employee, Omani employee. For us, with the expats, you can have arrangements to second them into another company or send them on long leave and bring them back. Similarly, with the locals, you can also sort of a forced leave to be taken during this period, and then reduce salaries based on reduced number of hours. That is one measure that was taken. At the same time, they have reduced the fees that are charged by government institutions. Like, for example, for a employment visa, there used to be a cost of almost 300 riyals. During this period, they brought it down to 200 riyals, which is a substantial decrease in the money that is paid for employing expats. They also help the private sector for differing rents. You could have an agreement with your landlords. negotiate with them, and you could defer your rents, as well as you could even reduce the rents. But it had to be done through negotiation with the landlord. But today's paper summary says probably private sector companies could go to the landlords and get the rents waived, but that needs to be clarified and verified. But that just news has just come out to say, and that would be a great benefit for all the private sector companies.
What about the loans and
that's right. That's other one. So deferment of loans also has happened. No interest during this period.
Okay.
So they come out with a number of measures to help people cope up with this COVID-19.
Okay. What about custom related things? Were there any duty discount or?
I am not very much aware of that part of it. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what was the economic stimulus from the central bank to the banks or to the private sector or
Our availability of loans?
Yeah.
Availability of loans, but they haven't really. I would not say there was any specific, like what happens in the West, where they pump in money into the economy.
Okay.
Because as Dr. Anchan said in the beginning, Oman got triple whammy, not even a double whammy. We had the oil price, we had a change of ruling, and then we had this COVID-19. Yeah. But they helped out in other measures.
Understandable. Yes. Okay, fine. Let's move on. Okay. Now the next question to Clarence. Mr. Clarence, were there any job losses among the Indian community? What was their plight during this period? And since May, how many Indians are repatriated and how it was done? There are so many things included there. Since you are involved in the social environment, I think
he's the right person.
It's really a beautiful question, very valuable. Now, these sort of problems are there in all over the world. Again, I'm telling you.
Right.
Similarly, it is there in Oman also. Shakespeare once said, it is a tempest of the life. Corona or COVID-19 is like a tempest. Everybody has a problem. The companies, they don't have business. Hotels, they don't have guests. Restaurants, there is no customers. So the business has gone down. That means the equation is the people lose jobs. And many people have lost jobs, especially expats. As Lauren said, Omanis, they are quite safe. But expats, many people are lost. And especially in the hospitality industry, many people have lost their jobs. And after that, they wanted to go back. Now, as per the recent information what I have, around 70,000 Indians have gone back to India. Okay. Probably various reasons. Some people, they have family visas, but majority of them were on work visa and they lost their jobs. And those people were not able to stay here, sustain the expenses, and they wanted to go back. Right. And how did the Indian government and Indian embassy made arrangements? There were 3 types of arrangements. Number one is Vande Bharat mission that everybody knows. I think most of the Gulf countries, they made arrangements. Yeah. And through Indian embassy, Vande Bharat mission arranged beautifully the flights to various cities of India. In Oman, in Muscat, even Indian Social Club under the leadership of Dr. Satish Nambiar, they also arrange charter flights to various cities of India. That is one. Even the private travel agencies, they also tried. They wanted to help people who are desperately want to go. Now, Indian embassy couldn't manage all the people who wanted to go back, but definitely they wanted to have a support from Indian Social Club as well as other travel agencies. So all these 3 different segments, different entities, they came together and made beautiful arrangements for the people to go back to their own cities. That's what the arrangement they made.
Okay. As you said, I believe hospitality, there is more of tourism in Oman, I believe. Am I right?
Yeah. Oman is one of the country who looks after for the tourists to come in. And tourism is one of the major industry here.
Yeah.
Now, more of greeneries.
yeah, greeneries, hills, mountains, you name
Yeah.
it, is beautiful, and
Yeah.
all over Oman.
I
And
mean,
people love to come into
yes,
Oman and enjoy the beauty.
correct. I had been to Musandam and I know how beautiful it is.
And you need to go to Salala, where
Salala,
you
yeah.
Yeah, it's
it is like a Kerala.
yeah.
I know it is. You cannot make out Oman is a desert country. It
Correct,
is Salala
correct.
is beautiful.
I've heard a
Beauty.
lot about Salala. Actually, my friends had gone, but I just missed it to go. But I've heard a lot. So very
Right.
nice place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I urge you to come, Rajesh.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a beautiful
Surely.
country. Beautiful
Yeah.
place.
Surely we have to
Yeah.
come there once anyway.
Yeah.
This as we continue, this question is for Dr. Anchan. You are a elected board member to the board of Indian schools in Oman. Tell us the history of Indian schools in Oman and your role as chairman academics, particularly during this pandemic.
The school, we currently have 21 schools and around 45,000 students are currently there. It all started in 2011 where it was decided to bring in all the schools under one particular platform, and the members and the parents will go ahead and manage the schools, and that is what was done. And this is a very unique thing, which is probably we're the only country down here. I don't think anywhere else in the Gulf this is being done. So all
The British school does it over here. It is run by parents. Yeah, parents and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, no, we don't run for profits. That's an again thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't run
Yeah.
for
They don't
profits.
run for profits. It is run
Yeah,
by
yeah, we run for community service across.
Yeah.
So what was actually the desired at that point of a time? I'm talking about 2011. I contested election both the time. I'm 2011, and the second year I got elected. Currently, I'm on the board of the new school, which we just is one of the best school within Oman, Indian School Boucher. I'll just give you an insight. So what actually the government and the Indian community thought is that there should be a body which we call as the board of directors of the Indian schools, which constitutes of right from the nomination from the Indian embassy of the Minister of Education, and then basically the promoters. We have a couple of promoters from Indian school, Wadi Kabir, and this is the Hindu Mahajan Sabha, what we call them as. They have two schools, that is in Wadi Kabir and one in Sohar. Then we have a gentleman called Mr. Mohammad Ali. He has one school, which is Indian School Gobra. So they are the promoters of that school. So they are part of it. Then 5 elected members from the parents. Okay. Then we have an education advisor. We have 3 nominees from the Indian embassy. So all together, we have 15 members who actually are the board. Then each school has a committee. That means there's a president and a working committee. Now, it's a wonderful system wherein everyone works for the best interest of the school, and this board gets elected for a period of 2 years, and there's a different nomination. Same is the case with the management committee. So what actually is happening here is there's a value of knowledge. There's a different kind of a participation of the community from the parents to that particular school and to the board. So there's a huge thing which actually is happening. Very key factor which we brought in to say that is any Indian or a child will not have any differentiation while they study. I mean, we will ensure education is provided across Oman, okay, and we'll ensure the best of the standard of quality of education is being given at a very, very nominal price. If you tell the price what we currently are educating our children is maximum around 40 to 45 reals, okay, and that's the maximum what we charge. We don't charge beyond that, okay, and in this we ensure the best of the education is being given, and all the schools are affiliated to CBSE. So the objective is to ensure our children get the best. Today, even at the COVID time, we are connected online. The children are given extremely good classes of understanding depending on the time they come in. Higher classes are taken on at a different time. We are moving on to G Suite right now. So there's a personalization of understanding. Schools, we are preparing for the schools to start right now. We are planning. And when the school starts, probably we will be having 50% of the classes. We are planning how the school should be actually taking it up. And we are getting prepared for that. And believe me, I mean, this is one of the best systems where there's a cooperation between the parents and the stakeholders. And I'm looking forward to continue and do the best on this particular thing.
Just to Dr. Anchan, so you are now the chairman there?
I'm the chairman of academics and also the convener for the Indian School Boucher, because my daughter passed away, so I can't contest once more.
Okay. That's fantastic.
Okay. All right. I'm back. There was a little disturbance with my. It's all technical things, you know. Anyway, let's move on. I think Dr. Anchan, you have given a good insight into the system that you are operating in the Indian schools. I had been to Wadi School. I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you should come to our new school. We have the swimming pools, we have the cricket pitch, we have the squash centers, we have everything. The new school I'm talking about. We have interactive panels.
The facilities nowadays we have got in the schools now. Actually, if you see,
we have interactive panels for each class. Let me tell you that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And specialized furnitures. So from KG, the furnitures are different. A number of students per class are different. It's a centralized AC, extremely with a new kind of a technology. So, I mean, and everything is green down there, okay? So you should come and see our Indian school Bowsher. It will be one of the best within GCC, I can tell you that.
Thank you for the invitation. Let's move on. This question to Mr. Lawrence. Could you tell us more about Oman's Vision 2040? Because I browsed and found that they have a Vision 2040. What are Oman's initiatives for a green future?
Right. To put it in a nutshell, Oman's vision for 2040 is to become a developed country.
Right.
I mean, it's a fantastic vision, and it has got 3 solid pillars on which the vision is based. One is people and society. The focus will be on its people and society. Second is economy and development. And third is governance and institutional performance. So these are the 3 pillars on which the vision is based. And if they focus and execute their strategy right, I believe they will be a developed country much before 2040. But that's the vision. So the first one, people and society, is where we already discussed about how Omani people are being developed. They do a lot of things in terms of developing their people. They have revised their school curriculum. They have brought in many colleges, all affiliated to international universities, and they got technological institutions around the place. So development of people is something that Oman is very, very serious about. And this will then reflect and show in society.
Now, you have been a part also, because you are in the education side. You are also being a part for the development.
Exactly. Yes, that's my core activity. Going back to the second pillar about economy and development, I think Dr. Anchan has given us enough information to see how economy is being developed and what measures the government is taking to get in investors, create jobs, and spur the economic activity within the country. The third one, which is a very interesting one, is governance and institutional performance. That's the government institutions. Now, once the new ruler has taken on, His Majesty Haitham bin Tariq, we have seen number of changes taking place within the government structure. Structural changes are happening. We have had changes in the ministers. We have had creation of new bodies. So massive change is taking place in all these institutions, just to make sure that they are now reoriented towards achieving that vision. And what I believe is he's trying to drive all the government institutions as private corporates with KPIs to deliver. So they will be accountable to the targets set, and they will need to report to him on a regular basis on the progress made. And we can see that the change happening in the government and in the society just now. We can feel that vibration. So this is how the Vision 2040, and he interestingly, he himself was the chairman of the committee that developed the vision over the last 5-10 years.
Okay.
So now it is his turn to really execute it and make it happen.
Okay. I think the person who planned is already there to execute.
In the driver's seat.
Yeah,
that's
right. Driver's seat, yes.
No,
Let's take a break. let's take a small break now. We'll come back after this quickly.
Blue Royal Diamond draws together and empowers highly experienced, skilled, and unskilled laborers from diverse fields to lend their services to leading companies. This enables those companies to achieve their target in a scheduled timeframe. You can mail us at Blue Royal Group of Companies, PO Box number 81190, Dubai, UAE, or contact us at telephone number +9 714 2327 229.
We are back live, and Rajesh, let's move on.
This is for Clarence. Many skilled and semi-skilled people have gone back to India, to the towns and villages, and also to many big cities. How can these people establish themselves in their hometowns and villages with the newly acquired skills, that is in farming or any other activities? What support they should get from the people, locals, and the government, the state governments or the central government? What do you say about it?
Okay, I start with this. Earlier in the Gulf, especially here, people used to ask whether end of the year, do you have the increment, you have bonus, all these things. And right now people are saying, do you have the job with you? And people, yeah. And are you still working? People are not worried about increment. People are not worried about their bonuses, but they are worried about only the work. And people also, the wages have been reduced in some places because of to have match with the business. Now people have gone back. The question is, many people have gone back. As I said, 70,000 Indians have gone back to India, to various cities, various villages. I give one example. One of my friend who was in Abu Dhabi has gone back to India. He's an engineer. He's a computer engineer. But what he said is he has got a skill to farming. So he went to his roots, identified the roots, what is his abilities, and he cultivated a beautiful farming system in a place called Kinniguri. That is what, understand your skills and go to the roots. There are people gone back to India, understood the business. I think people have also started small businesses where they have to survive. I fully agree. There are problems. There are problems after going back to India. There are problems. Jobs are not available. In this particular case, the Gulf people from Muscat, Oman, everywhere, they have sent a lot of money back to India. This is the time our government, Indian government or state government, should support the expats who came back with the difficulties. I fully agree. Indian people, they also have problems, but definitely they should also support the people who are coming back from Gulf.
I believe we are now going to the old system where we used to do farming and all that things. We are actually going back.
Absolutely. There are many youngsters, after leaving this place, going back to India, they understood the roots. The people are saying, I have a value of the roots and going back into the cultivation, which is very, very important. I feel.
But one thing is, now technology is coming to picture. They can use the technology with their, whatever they did it in the Gulf, the technology and the roots will make a good blend.
Yeah. Well, all educated youngsters, they also, see the organic farming, which is also very important. And technology, people or engineers who can bring the technology into the farming and have a better production. That is what my feeling.
Okay. Okay. I think you have given some good thoughts. Maybe we have to catch hold of these people who have gone back and started farming so that we focus on them and they give their thoughts to the people, how they can motivate others who can do the farming.
Yeah, some people have given the interview in Daiji recently. I seen one or two interviews in Daiji TV.
Yes.
And they have a really inspiration for the people who are coming back. Youngsters, especially youngsters, they are really good inspiration.
Okay. Great. We are coming to the end of the show. Now, this question to all of you, there are two parts. First of all, what is your message to people amidst living with Corona? And the second question is, what is your call to viewers to support News Karnataka and why? I will start with Dr. Anchan.
You're doing a wonderful job at this point of a time, calling all the Kannadigas across the globe and giving them an opportunity to connect to them, share their experiences, share the rich knowledge what they bring in. Now, this is something which you are contributing back to society in a great way. Hats off to you, sir. This is a wonderful job. I mean, on behalf, I'm quite sure everyone will agree. I mean, I can personally say that ready to export. I mean, connect to you anytime, any support you require to anything to do with our homeland, we're ready. Point number one. Point number two, when it connects to people, I would say life is full of opportunities. Life is full of things which will come to you at any point of a time. What is important to have is the core values of your life. You need to stay connected to your people, your family. Very, very important for you. If you're not happy, you will not deliver. There's no sense of you trying to do so many things in life if there's, if you don't share that happiness. So care for people, appreciate what your elders have given, particularly take care of your parents, very important. Take care of your friends, okay, grow your networks well. Once you have this, believe me, you will be blessed with great life. Stay focused, okay? That's it, sir. That's it from my side.
Thank you. And Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, my message is mostly for the youngsters who are viewing us today. The future is digital. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, we are moving in that direction. While not forgetting the conventional careers that we have taken, I think News Karnataka has done a wonderful thing by setting up that academy for training people in digital media and journalism in general. So I urge the youngsters to start looking at newer things, start looking at the future and look at new career openings. And News Karnataka is providing a beautiful platform where they will train you and certify you in digital media and journalism. Please use this platform. Please use this opportunity that's being provided. And I would particularly like to thank News Karnataka for thinking in this line and providing this avenue for our youngsters.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, Mr. Clarence.
Yeah, COVID-19 is a temporary phase of everybody's life. And it will come and it will go. And we need to have a green pasture. You should look at green pasture of your lives. Now, Abhinandanegalu is in Kannada. Abhinandanegalu to News Karnataka.
Thank you.
1.4 million youths, you are planned to train them. Somebody says, inspire youth, train them, transform the nation. And you are bringing definitely changes in the nation. The youth of today, 1.4 million youths, you are planning to train them for the benefit of the nation. This project, as you said, Valerian, wonderfully you said, it is our project, not your project. Everybody should come together. It is a very tiny amount what we should contribute. Right. Definitely, I will also communicate to our members of Mangalorean Konkani community, and through them, even ISC, we should realize it is not Valerian's program, Valerian's initiative.
Yes.
It is our initiative,
Exactly.
our plan.
Yes.
We all come together, support. It is tiny amount what we need to contribute.
Right.
And if everybody says, yes, I'm there with you, this project will be definitely a fantastic project.
We have got a good support from everyone. It's nice your support also from every one of you. It's a great thing you have given to us.
Yeah.
We have been getting support from other places also. That's very nice.
Right. Right. So
and we also assure you our support, whatever way is
so
possible,
much.
individually.
Thank you.
And also in a group level. Thank you so much.
I would like to close this program for the knowledge of viewers and also our amazing people, 3 guests that who are with us. News Karnataka is a people's corporate. I must tell you that this is the first time a media company is running with the people's participation, because it is the people who are driving the company, the employees are driving the company, and the support is created for them to run the company. And that's how we have grown for the last 7 years. And whatever support that we have done by way of injecting capital by 47 shareholders is amply guarded by the people, the employees, and they are running the company by themselves, of course, with the mentorship of the people, the shareholders. But day to day, everything is done by them. Of course, we are having a overview on day-to-day basis. So this is a people's corporate. It's a new concept. It has been running for the last 7 years. I'm sure with people's support, because we believe in people and people of the state, Kannadigas, so that we can first create employment, generate employment throughout Karnataka, and then go to the other states of Karnataka. Thank you for participating in this show, Dr. Anchan, Mr. Clarence, and Mr. Lawrence. And thank you for giving your insights of your experience and motivating our young people to take up their tiny, step and then grow and get expertise and knowledge and skill in their future life. Thank you for participating in the show. And once again, good evening and good night.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಶುಭರಾತ್ರಿ.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless. God bless.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.